Hello, and welcome to Your Wealth Health, a show focused on helping you manage your money. I'm your host, Tracy Capelman, and we are here once again with the founder and CEO of Hilltop Wealth Solutions, Eric Brenner. He is a certified financial planner. Hilltop is a registered investment advisory firm and a fiduciary for their clients. They guide clients through periods of extreme volatility like we've just been through and uncertainty, and they yield successful results. It is so good to see you again, Eric.
Great to see you, Tracy. Thank you.
Well, this week we are going to talk about inflation, how it works, how to prepare for it. We have been hearing a lot lately about possible inflation, and it seems there are signs that it could be an imminent threat. The recent gas and lumber shortages, they have a lot of people concerned, and let's face it, from the food we eat to filling the car with gas, any kind of supplies we're buying, we are seeing prices increase across the board. Eric, what's the deal here?
Well, certainly inflation has been in the news, no doubt about it. And, we've seen some goods and services. I know I've experienced personally where things have gone up. We do believe, though, that, oftentimes, like it does in the press, it's got a lot of press, but we think inflation is going to kind of level out in this whole thing of inflation. It will kind of come back around. And so, the Fed has really talked about inflation. We don't think they're that concerned about it. We think that they certainly could raise interest rates over a period of time, but we just really think things will kind of circle back and kind of go back to a bit of normal. We've also seen some pricing happening that there were a lot of businesses last year that were affected, and so travel, rental cars, those kinds of things, we've seen some bumps in prices as well. And in fact, I brought along a chart graphic that shows inflation. If you look at this, we're really in a lower inflationary environment, Tracy, than really back to the 1990s. And so overall, we think that it's going to kind of even out. We're going to kind of see this inflationary discussion kind of go away and really get back to some potential growth in the economy.
Okay, so that's good news. Good news. Always helpful to get the big picture. It would also help our viewers to know, I think, what are some of the signs that indicate inflation is happening in general?
Yeah, so some of the signs, as we just mentioned, some goods and services that we see what you're buying. So that certainly is a piece of it. Just a lot of this increases in goods is just transportation. So, people are having trouble finding people to do the job. So that's another sign of it. There's other signs that come into play. One of the things that's important here is that although we think there's, for the next 12 to 18 months, a pretty good economic outlook, we do think that there's going to be some market volatility. So we think that there'll be some market volatility along the way. But again, we just think that the inflationary numbers, we're not going to shoot up into kind of really, really high inflationary numbers. At least that's not what we're seeing right now.
Good. So obviously it's impossible for anybody to control inflation. But what can we do to plan for it so we can protect our wealth?
Yeah, so there's a couple things to think about, and oftentimes when we talk about inflation, then what happens is we're going to see commercials about invest in gold, invest in silver, these kinds of things. And although those can be a good piece of a portfolio, what I wouldn't do is overreact, okay? Because oftentimes those sales pitches come in when we see higher inflation numbers. So really what you can do is a couple things. One is certainly if you can shop around for the goods and services that you're currently buying, maybe you can find a better deal somewhere than else. You could hold off on certain projects that you want to do. Maybe you don't have to do them, so you don't have to buy in this time frame. The other thing within your portfolio, Tracy, it's really important to understand that stocks are a way to go against inflation. So if you have bonds, especially if you're retired and you have more bonds, they're more conservative, they are going to be more affected by inflation. So looking at your portfolio and making sure it's got the right balance.
So clearly inflation is something that we really need to take seriously and factor into retirement planning and do it now. What advice do you have for us regarding that?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. So, we in our planning do use an inflationary number. So we've got to project it out. Obviously, we don't know the future, but we look at averages and then we run that into course. If you think about it, a gallon of gas 20 years ago, right, was lower than what it was today. So we certainly have to play that in, and you just have in your retirement planning projections, you have to use a good number, okay, not too high, not too low, to make sure that you're not going to be in trouble later on down the road.
That's right. Just a piece of valuable information that could have a huge impact on a lot of people's futures. And to make sure people are prepared for their future retirement, it's so helpful to get professional advice. Our viewers could use advice from a good fiduciary advisor like yourself and all the advisors at Hilltop. Explain what a fiduciary advisor is and why that's important, and then you have an offer for them today.
Yeah, so often I say that it's easier to avoid a financial mistake than it is to fix an existing one. And the environment we're in today, people can kind of get swayed. And I've had situations over the years where inflation creeps up, the value of the dollar is concerned, and people take a lot of money and they put it over into gold or some other investment. And you know what, in the end, it wasn't the best decision. So a fiduciary advisor really is there in the best interest of the client, okay? We don't sell products or services. We don't gain commissions off of selling products or services. We're really on your side. We're in your corner. We're on the same side of the table as the client. And we're gonna help guide you through this. We don't know what the future holds, but we have a lot of good history. And as long as you have a good plan, diversification within your risk tolerance, we can help you achieve your goals, and that's what it is. And really our offer is about, we call it a retirement roadmap. And so it's really laying out that roadmap, right? You don't want to go probably on a road trip without the roadmap. So laying out that roadmap, we take a look at the investment risk you're taking and assess that, Social Security analysis, a forward-looking tax plan. And so all they have to do is just call the number there on the screen, or what they can do is go to our website at hilltopwealthsolutions.com, and we'll be glad to just review what they have and see if we can help.
And it is just risk-free, no reason not to do it. Now, last but not least, let's discuss the relationship between the stock market and inflation. So you talked about stocks, and then when inflation happens, what does that mean for your stock portfolio?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, but it is important to have that correlation. Stocks is actually a way to help offset the inflation, okay, or outpace it. And so again, if someone says, I'm going to go to gold or not gold or go other investments, having a stock portfolio, and I don't mean individual stock portfolio, they can have a portfolio of mutual funds or exchange traded funds, but having those is one of the best ways to really combat inflation. And so again, making sure that someone understands their risk tolerance, Tracy, is really important. How much risk are you willing to take? And then we can put together a portfolio to help combat inflation.
That is awesome. Eric, we appreciate your time. You have helped us really become more aware of how much inflation can affect our investments, and our audience, I think, has a much better idea of how to be prepared for it in the event that it does happen. Well, we are out of time for this edition of Your Wealth Health. For Eric Brenner and the entire Hilltop staff, I'm Tracy Capelman. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time, and until then, stay wealthy, everyone. We hope you found this discussion helpful today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for new content weekly.